Hello and welcome to The Hearing, our music review show here on the channel. I'm John.
And I'm Scotto.
And before we get to this week's album, we've got some feedback. This is from James Bukowick, apologies if I mispronounced your last name, on Twitter in reference to this week's album. He said, that whole album is wonderful. The open of La Via La Viasquez is so explosive. And of course, the album is from 2005, Francis the Mute by the Mars Volta. The Mars Volta were an American progressive rock band from El Paso, Texas, known for their energetic live shows and concept albums. Formed in 2001 following the breakup of guitarist Omar Rodríguez-López and vocalist Cedric Bixler-Zavala's previous band At the Drive-In, the band went on to release 6 albums. In 2008, the Mars Volta were named the Best Prog Rock Band by Rolling Stone magazine. In 2009, they won the Grammy for Best Hard Rock Performance for the song Wax Simulacra from their album Bedlam and Goliath. In September 2012, the Mars Volta entered a hiatus with Rodríguez-López and drummer Dean Tony Parks forming a new project, Bosnian Rainbows. 4 months later, the band formally broke up. Bixler-Zavala and bassist Juan Alderete subsequently formed a new band, Zavala's. Rodríguez-López and Bixler-Zavala eventually reunited in 2014 for a new project called Anti-Mask. That's A-N-T-E. At the Drive-In reunited in 2015, and comments from the pair have indicated that they plan to reunite the Mars Volta in the future. Francis the Mute is the band's second studio album, and the first to feature Alderete and percussionist Marcel Rodríguez-López. The album also includes contributions from saxophonist Adrian Terrazas Garzales, who joined the band during its subsequent tour. Jeremy Ward, audio artist for the Mars Volta until his death in 2003, had previously worked as a repo man. One day, Ward discovered a diary in the backseat of a car he was repossessing and began to note similarities between his life and that of the author, most notably that they had both been adopted. The diary told of the author's search for his biological parents, with the way being pointed by a collection of people, their names being the basis for each named track on Francis the Mute. Rather than bring his idea, and this is a bit about the making of the album, rather than bring his ideas to the band as a whole, and working them out as a group rehearsal, Omar Rodríguez-López, who also produced the album, met individually with each player to practice each part one-on-one. He said, quote, "We'll sit there and play it forever and slow, real slow, to understand what's happening. It's easy to play something fast and loud, but to play it soft and slow takes a certain amount of discipline. Then once we understand the part, everyone's free to elaborate. Their personalities come out, and it's not my part anymore. They get into it and give it that swing that I can't give it," unquote. Lopez also took the step of recording the band members separately before layering the various tracks to create each song. I saw an interview. There's a series on Spotify, on YouTube rather, called "Understanding the Mars Volta." I watched the section on this album.
Yeah.
He didn't tell the individual players which song they were working on or how they related to each individual part. It was kind of like Zappa's Project Object thing.
Yeah.
It was all recorded modularly, and because he didn't want them anticipating that this was a chorus, so they were going to play more aggressively, or it was a verse, so they were going to play softer, or anything like that. They just approached it completely modularly.
And that's exactly why I said we should we'll push the Dick Dale tribute. We should do this after Zappa.
Yeah. Dick Dale passed away earlier in the week. Do we want to do the tribute when we come back?
Yeah, when we come back.
Okay, we'll come back. We'll get to that after. Francis the Mute was released in February of 2005. Sorry. And I think in March in the U.S., unlike March 1st. In February in a couple of other places. On Gold Standard Laboratories and Universal, produced, as I mentioned, by Omar Rodríguez-López, and features Omar Rodríguez-López on guitars and synthesizers, Cedric Bixler-Zavala on vocals, John Theodore on drums, Isaiah I.Q. Owens on keyboards, Juan and Alderete de la Pena on bass. Incidentally, if that name sounds familiar to the guitar players out there, the old middle-aged guitar players out there, in the 80s he played in a band called Racer X with Paul Gilbert. They were a shred band. Just everybody basically showed off. And finally, Marcel Rodríguez-López on percussion and keyboards, as well as a lot of additional musicians.
Yeah.
Including Flea and John Frusciante from the Red Hot Chili Peppers. Flea played trumpet on the album, not bass.
Right.
And Roger Joseph Manning Jr., formerly of Jellyfish, who played piano.
Oh, cool.
Reminder, I don't edit any songs into our episodes for copyright reasons, but down in the description, you'll find, and on our blog at johnandscotto.com, you'll find links to the album on Spotify and YouTube. Now, we're going to take a bit of an interesting approach to the tracks here.
Yeah, because, I mean, for obvious reasons, the tracks are really...
There are some long songs that are broken into separate sections, but Spotify didn't do that correctly, apparently. So they list the last 8 tracks as separate tracks. Apparently, it's all one piece.
The CD did it too, I think. I mean, just the way I came across this, I was heavily into like prog rock, message boards at the time, and I kept hearing about from the first album. Everybody kept like going, "You got to check this out," and I think it was 2005, and I see this fucked up album cover of just this guy driving in the car with the red mask on, or the red, hood pulled over his face where he couldn't see, and I was just like, all right, let's check this out. And so the first track here that gets us in.
On to track 1, Cygnus Vismund de Cygnus. I'm going to mispronounce some names here. I apologize.
It starts out with just this acoustic guitar.
That reminded me a lot of Yes.
And I'm thinking, so what is this? Just like some Wish You Were Here, Pigs on the Wing, Pink Floyd thing? And honestly, these songs are kind of placed like Pigs on the Wing from Animals. And then as soon as that ended, literally all audio hell breaks.
It gets complex, and I didn't expect that to happen so quickly.
Right. It hits you like this. I mean, when Pink Floyd did it, you had this nice little ease into Dogs, They knew what they were doing. They knew they were kind of quoting Floyd, but then like flipping it where
you mentioned Floyd. I'm hearing the beginning. There's a guest song, "Your Move," I think it's called. It's about the one about chess.
Oh God!
They play it live. They played it live all the time during the 90125 tour.
Yes,
the song. I'm reminded of that one. But you hear Floyd. It's a combination of the two. And this band is a combination of a lot of bands. We'll get to that.
I've got the song in my head and I can't But Yes is of course a big influence on this.
Well, and Genesis and Zeppelin.
Rush, definitely.
But I first heard about them in the summer of 2008 from this guitarist I was playing with at the time. Never really got around to checking them out because Spotify was a few years off still.
Yeah.
And I just never had. I think I checked out little bits here and there.
I think I recommended them.
So this is my first time really delving into their music. Cedric reminds me of 2 people, depending on the song.
Yeah.
And one was very influenced by the other. So the less obvious one, Claudio Sanchez from Coheed and Cambria, sounds a lot like. We need to review them.
I think they were around the same time, honestly.
Possibly, yeah. Maybe a little earlier. I think I've heard about them. No, these guys were early thousands. So yeah.
Right. Yeah, because these guys at the drive-in, I always thought was kind of an emo type band. So when they went and did this was like a what?
Well, I think more to the point, Cedric and Claudio were both influenced by the same guy, heavily influenced, rather obviously, by Robert Plant.
Yeah.
His vocals are very Zeppelin, and the beginning is nicely trippy. I did not expect it to get loud and complex so soon.
Just this explosion of that guitar drum combo. And by the way, I don't know if this could be said enough, but I think John Theodore may in fact be God.
He's good. I think Neil Peart might have something to say about that.
Well, I mean, right, but that was a long time ago. Is there a drummer like this now? Like present day? Like he is.
Well,
I mean,
currently working. I'm blanking on his name. Dream Theater. Can't think of the drummer's name. He's up there.
like
Um,
like Queens of the Stone Age, they got him to replace Grohl. So I mean, it's not crazy to put him in like a high esteem
oh yeah,
for
I mean,
drumming.
well,
Uh,
Drill's good, but I mean, I think again, the drummer. I can't believe I'm losing his name. Drummer from Dream Theater, up there with Neil. Dave Lombardo, one of the best in metal. Um, Akane, I think, could pull off a lot. Hirose from Bandmate, I think, could pull off a lot of this stuff. There's some great drummers out there. Dave Theodore, is it Dave or John Theodore? Great drummer. I'm not putting him down, but there's others who were on his level. I'm just saying. Really nice syncopation in this, even though it's in 4. I counted it, but it does not feel like 4.
Because I was trying to ask you, like, what time signature is this in? Because he's
I
fucking
mean, that opening
wailing
section,
away.
that main section before it changes, it's all in 4. It's a straight 4. It's just syncopated as fuck.
I mean, so yeah, you got the guitars and drums, which when they interplay, man, it's awesome.
And it's this really nice groove in the verses before it goes into the kind of this blast beat thing in the chorus. But
he's just wailing away in Spanish, which I mean, to a non-Spanish, and then that chant in the background, which I never really knew what they were chanting. In English, it translates to "Get ready, boy."
Okay. It's a good thing I'm accustomed to lyrics in other languages because they jump back and forth in this one.
I think this band actually got me into Yes.
Oh, okay.
If you think about it, because up until this point, before I got into like the mid 2000s, lyrics meant so much to me, and I had to be able to like really chew into them. But I mean, this is just like, no, just let go, and it's a vocalization, it's an instrument.
And yes, his lyrics are largely nonsense.
Right. It's very hippy dippy, new age.
Yeah.
Bill Bruford hated them.
Yeah.
Like, why can't you just write some fucking normal lyrics? He would be like Chide Anderson.
It's literally new age stuff because he's done songs for like harmonic inversions and shit.
Right. So so here you just let go. I mean, I realize I've missed a good portion of this album not digging into the lyrics because it's fucking mind-blowing. Even in like the story that this entire album tells.
Now, I will say with my criticisms here, because this is going to be a very critical review from me. I'm just going to warn you about that. None of this has to do with the lyrics, because obviously, as I've said before, first time I hear something, the lyrics don't sink in.
Yeah.
Especially when some of them, probably half of them, are in a language I don't really speak very well.
I mean, I've got 14 years of having this. I had this probably after it first came out.
Okay, so you know this album a lot better than I do.
Until now.
And then we have this heavy, intense syncopated section, and then it goes into space rock.
Yes.
And we have this really interesting percussion behind the guitar solo. That kind of sounds very electronic.
Are you talking like the last 3 minutes where it just gets into these random ambient noises?
No, I'll get to that. I'll get to the ambient.
Okay.
But it's during the guitar solo, there's just kind of this interesting kind of electronic sounding percussion. The solo is very Zappa. Omar can't decide if he wants to be Zappa or Carlos Santana. He rips them both off equally.
Oh, who was the person that said it was like if Carlos Santana and I think somebody said it was Carlos Santana and God had a baby.
See, I don't know. I think, I mean, Omar's a good rhythm player. And there's someone else coming up in a future review I'm going to say the same thing about. He reminds me of Pete Townsend because he's writes some interesting music, good rhythm player, shouldn't bother with solos. Because his solos are just noodly and meandering and pointless. I did not enjoy a single guitar solo, and I'm a guitar player. This one just goes on entirely too long.
I think he added a lot of them for texture in there. I mean, I think they definitely over texture in the end. They go.
And again, first listen. So maybe in future, if I listen to it again, maybe I would understand, kind of get more of what he was going for. This is all coming from a first listen. And I just want to point that out because, again, pretty critical. But future listens might change my mind on this. But, we have that entirely too long guitar solo. Then it goes back into the syncopated 4 great groove from the beginning for a little bit. And then it fades 5 minutes from the end. And this is when they started to piss me off. Because I was total, aside from the annoying guitar solo, I was totally on board for this song up until this point. And maybe not on this song. I can't say they pissed me off on this song because it was interesting.
Right.
There were some kind of nice Richard Wright-esque kind of synth parts in there.
Oh yeah, they get very Richard Wright at like certain parts of this album.
But it went on for 5 fucking minutes, and I just got bored.
Well, right, they do this this strange thing where you're just like you're into it, and then they go off on this weird, like a woman scolding a child, and then just like these other sounds and trucks going by. You're just like, wait, what's going on?
Now, you know the story. Was it at all relevant to the story? Because I'll cut him a break if it was relevant to the story.
I mean, I think it is. It's not easy to follow the story, though. Okay. I mean, the story is that the child, yeah, I guess that would be in his adopted home.
Okay.
So he's getting scolded by his foster mom, and he has to. I mean, he winds up going on the hunt for like
for his parents, for
who his biological parents are.
Right.
It's pretty much the gist of the album. It's a very simple story. The Lambert is not, but it is. It is there.
But still, that went on for 5 fucking minutes.
Right, because it's like 3 minutes of that track. And then it goes like...
And then it segues into the next track.
The other song for a couple minutes.
And it's fine. That was a nice touch the first time. And I liked the nice soft... That we're on to track 2, The Widow.
Yes.
Nice
their idea of a single.
Nice soft opening. Love the fretless bass. Nice to hear fretless bass on something. And it's got this... It's soft. It starts with this soft kind of acoustic verse.
Right.
Really pretty song with this big anthemic chorus. Probably the only thing that's stuck in my head after listening to it is this chorus.
It's probably the rushiest of songs they've ever done.
I was going to say the vocal's more Plant than Claudio, but he does go a little Getty on that chorus. Oh, yeah. Nice groove. The groove kind of works through the soft verse and the loud chorus, which was nice. I was really enjoying this song. The trumpet is a nice touch. Flea on trumpet.
Yeah.
Really talented trumpet player. I think he started on trumpet.
Oh, yeah?
Before he switched to bass, if I recall.
No kidding.
We get another noodly, pointless guitar solo, but I'm accepting that that's Omar's thing at this point. And then midway through, it fades again.
Yeah, you get another 2 minutes of ambient.
Some very outer limit sounding synth.
Yeah. Yeah, this time it's just more straight of strange synths and ambient noises. It's kind of like this, you surface and then you go back underwater again kind of thing.
And this is where I realized they're just being weird for weird's sake. I really enjoyed that song until that ending.
I don't know. I mean,
that would have been my pick for favorite until that ending.
The whole story itself, I mean, and the whole finding the found footage thing, I mean, is kind of, I don't know if it's being weird for weird's sake or
if they're just weird. About the story because I don't know anything about the story.
Or if they're just weird themselves.
On to track 3, La Villa, La Viasquez. I'm wondering if La Villa is a subtle Rush reference to La Villa Strangiato. Again, segues right into this one. Starting to get a little bored with that at this point.
That's just, I mean, this whole album really goes into each other. You could say it's one track between 5 parts.
Up until the ending, up until that last piece. That's the only one that really hits you in the face. The first part of it. We'll get to that. I think the carryover from the last song goes on too long in this case, though. In the case of The Widow, it was just a nice little segue, and then the song picks up.
Yeah.
In this case, it just goes on and on and on. And then they go classic rock.
Yeah, it's like...
And this is what James was talking about in the feedback, saying it was explosive. It just kind of blows your head off with this classic rock.
Right, because they work those strange ambient things into... as segues into the next thing, and they contrast what they're doing.
That when it picks up, it reminds me of Genesis for some reason.
Oh, I mean, this is of course probably the most Latino you
Well, and it
really
has a
get
whole
music
salsa
wise,
section, but that
right?
first classic rock section reminds me of Genesis. I'm not sure why, because you know Genesis a lot better than I do.
Yeah, I don't know
Um,
if that would be.
I think it might be the Mellotron in the background, which just adds some really nice tension.
There is a lot of Mellotron on this, and there it is very.
And I
This
think
whole
the
album
rhythm,
is very foxtrot.
I think the rhythm is a bit Collins. He had certain frenetic rhythms that he played. Um, Particularly that nice frenetic bit with the complex bass and drums. I really like the kind of blast beats. And then it goes into a kind of the salsa-ish thing, which was a nice surprise.
Yeah.
And then I have Omar Shouldn't Bother with solos. And then it goes back to the classic rock thing, and then the salsa comes back a little more pronounced when it comes back. They really lay into the Latino thing.
Yes.
And there's this whooshing sound effect between those sections, which really kind of gives it away. I would have preferred if it was just, upside the head change.
Oh,
They
okay.
kind of
Yeah.
telegraph it a little. And it's just past the halfway point, and it's starting to get predictable. And then they just get too impressed with their own cleverness, which is my real issue with this album. I would say the band, but I'd have to hear more of their stuff to really judge them. They're just too impressed with themselves because it's this wannabe Zappa solo that just goes nowhere.
I
And
enjoyed his solos for the most part. I mean, I don't think they go on too long entirely.
Personal taste. I just don't like meandering noodling. I like some melody.
But they're taking a very jazz approach to the prog rock method here.
Yeah, but when Zappa went off in weird, atonal directions, I understood what he was doing. There was a point to it. Same thing with Vernon Reid, who I didn't really appreciate back in the day, but listening to his kind of the solos where he goes off in these weird atonal directions, I get it now. I don't get what Omar was doing other than just trying to be weird.
Like I think,
and trying to sound like Zappa or maybe Vernon Reid.
I mean, I think when he does it in the later track, I mean, and then that works in with the horn solos on top of that. They're
Get interesting at that point, yeah.
Yeah.
I just got bored with it, and then more weird sound effects at the end. And there's this vocal effect at the end that would have been interesting had I never heard 21st Century Schizoid Man. Because that's what they were clearly referencing.
I don't know. I always thought that was a different.
It's a different effect, but it's still this distorted thing, and it kind of it definitely gave me Schizoid Man feels.
It's kind of a melting feel that it gives you, and yeah, that's when the song kind of melts itself away, and you get more ambient noise.
And on to track 4, Miranda, That Ghost Just Isn't Holy Anymore. I do appreciate their titles. Reminiscent of, or maybe influential to, Flaming Lips.
Yes, and each one is like a character of the story. Minus, of course, the 8 tracks that were the end. It should have just been Cassandra Gemini.
Again, a segue. It's starting to get old now. Because it's never a clever segue, like the wedding music on the Zappa album, or the one you referenced that was similar. I forget what it was. It's never this weird little twist that they add. It's just this soft, spacey thing that they decide to carry on to the next track. I just want to say I want to be surprised and hit in the face by it when a new song starts. I got that once on the album. And that segued section is 2 minutes.
I would say this was the best use of the ambient noise on the album, actually, to lead into this one.
But it goes on for 2 minutes.
But they're not in a hurry.
This is why when I remembered why I don't listen to any new prog really, and don't really listen to classic prog much anymore. And now I like bands like Calva Louise and Estrons who just kind of get to the fucking point.
But I mean, that's pop. Fits in a 4-minute box. You can put it on a single. This isn't what they're going for here. They're going for a concept album.
Yeah, but maybe it's because I don't know the story that it's lost on me. But it just seems pointless. And And the pointless segue ends finally after 4.5 minutes.
Well, like
And we have something resembling a rhythm.
you've got this nightmarish noise. They build up into this like kind of a sad, lonely horn music into this one, and then the nightmarish horns and vocals all build
Mm-hmm.
to a pretty nice climax here.
And you've got this guitar sound that's straight out of Shine On You Crazy Diamond.
Ooh, I don't know about that.
The guitar sound, that's not what he's playing, but the sound of it is very Shine On. It's that opening guitar in Shine On.
Yeah. Okay, I can hear that.
And so what he played is a little reminiscent of it too. It just sounds like Floyd scoring a Tarantino movie. This to me is the weakest song. It never picks up. It's just too self-indulgent. Finally, it picks up a little bit at 8.5 minutes in, and the ending meandering is the last 4 minutes.
Right, you get like some amp with jazz horns and guitar together. It's very, this one I think was very, old Floyd, like Ummagumma, Saucer Full of Secrets.
Now on to track 5, and on Spotify this is not the last track, but this is the last piece on the album, as you've explained. All the subsequent tracks are all part of the same song, so I'm not going to announce the next track after this. I'm just going to announce the name of the section it goes into.
Right, and the way at the end of Miranda, that last minute, you can faintly hear John Theodore killing it again, but they're playing like the same music very faintly. We're leaving off from where Cygnus, after that, who do you trust? Where when you hear the woman scolding the kid,
right?
They're playing that again.
Okay, I didn't catch that.
And you think it's about to build up into something, but that gets interrupted by
it just hits you. It just kicks you in the face, finally, and I loved it.
Right? You're just like, wait, what?
I've been waiting for the kick in the face when a song change happens.
Yeah,
and it's this great syncopated groove, a very Robert Plant vocal. Some nice timing change into this kind of spacey section.
Right, you get this
space rock section.
Like you have these Getty vocals when he starts. He's frantic. He's all over the place. I think I've become one of the others. And then it gets into this very noir William S. Burroughs kind of voice.
And I complained about the affected vocal here, but it works earlier, rather. It works here. It's this nice affected spoken vocal that's very intense.
The lyrics are just so weird.
And there's this like atonal guitar that comes in during it goes into this higher vocal, kind of trades back and forth between the spoken part and this higher sung part. And
a lap dance lapel.
And the higher sung part is matched with this atonal guitar, the only lead guitar that Omar played that I liked, I think. And it really shows what they can pack into a shorter song.
Yeah, definitely. If they were forced to edit, like it would be like, what?
Which is one of my big problems with the band. They need a fucking editor because they are too self-indulgent and too impressed with their own cleverness. But this is easily my favorite on the album. I love the horn stabs, a really nice unexpected touch. The saxophone I did not see coming at all.
There's like even a little flute in there, I think, where they're like where they're doing like the spoken word thing.
I want an album of songs like this. And I mean just this section, just this opening section of Cassandra Gemini. I don't know if I said the name. It's Cassandra Gemini is the name of this part.
That's the name of the part.
And there's no bullshit meandering ending on it.
And you get to the chorus
because it's not the ending. Because it's not the ending of the song. I guess.
Right, it's the intro.
Now we're on to the next section of this song called Tarantism.
Like the chorus, I thought the chorus was still under Cassandra Gemini. The Now There Is No Light. I don't know. It's broken up in very different ways, different places. It's very Sabbath, but like this whole song structure is, of course, very Genesis. Or Emerson, Lake and Palmer. Only it's a lot more primal, though.
And this section opens with another pointless guitar solo that carries over from the last song, which might not be where the point was intended to change. That's a good point. Because it does it right in the middle of the guitar solo.
It doesn't make any sense. It's like they're going into this guitar solo now. I've seen other where that it changes actually for the spoken word part.
Okay.
I've seen that too, like in the lyrics part.
I was trying to match like this different section names with Spotify and between Spotify and Wikipedia. They didn't match at all.
It's
The
a
names didn't
mess.
match. Yeah.
And it was hell when you had a CD and you had things on shuffle and you would just get like
Uh-huh.
a fragment of Cassandra Gemini in there, and it's like, okay, yeah, great.
You don't listen to concept albums on shuffle.
Yeah. Well, it was kind of like in the disc changer, you know.
Okay, yeah. And just as I'm starting to get bored with the solo, the band breaks it down into this great groove.
Yes. It just the guitar solo is just moving it from one to the other. Yeah, but then it breaks down.
But then Omar just completely gives up on trying to be subtle and just directly quotes Santana. I'm glad that ended behind the vocal, because there's a vocal that comes in and he's kind of soloing behind it. It got annoying, and then we get a pointless ending. But then they
don't know. I still get excited over this progression, even listening to this hundreds of times.
They start the meandering ending bullshit. Then they pull out of it with another pointless guitar solo, and they're back on their word for word sake bullshit.
And I've never noticed how good the bass playing was in this part.
Juan Alderete is an amazing player. Like, he started off with a prog metal shred band.
Yeah.
He's technically brilliant. And that's why I was surprised to hear him play fretless, because I'm not that familiar with Racer X, but it was a nice subtle fretless part, which surprised me.
Yeah, I'm not familiar with them at all, actually.
We might check them out at some point. 80s prog metal. Onto the next, well, not onto the next track. Like I said, the next section called "Plant a Nail in the Naval Stream." Wonderful titles.
So like I said,
this is literally just a continuation of the next song.
It's this progression that goes from that started here at that, and then they're just building it up.
And it gets a bit repetitive.
Where he's got this 25 wives chant, which started, according to Spotify, started on the track before. So it's kind of like, okay.
But yeah, it's literally just a continuation of the same song. So they did probably fuck up that edit.
And I love just how this crescendo, how I think it was even the CD, but I love the big horn sound on it for the crescendo here and how it just hits.
Mm-hmm. And the next section, Phra-Men Pulse. And on we go. Really, not exactly a continuation, same mood, same kind of style, but not quite the same piece. It's got this nice Steve Howish kind of guitar riff. Their Yes influence really came in on this one.
Yeah, the guitar solo is kind of interrupted by the track, which can be really.
I say the guitar solo goes on too long, and now we have a song,
which can be really annoying when you've got ads on Spotify.
Oh yeah, it's worth it. Just to get rid of the ads for premium and the library length. You can have as many songs as you want.
And a lot of the guitar work here is almost directly from Return of the Giant Hogweed.
And then a soft section comes in just when I was getting kind of bored. It was nice.
Right. It settles down. And there's some great interplay between the guitar and drums over it too.
And then it goes into the space rock section again.
We get these creepy whispered lyrics.
And the solo almost gets melodic, which is impressive for Omar. But then another bullshit meandering ending. I say, oh, how I don't miss you.
It leads to a new buildup, but we don't even know it started yet.
The next section, Pisasis, and I'm totally guessing on that pronunciation. Apologies if it's wrong. And in the parentheses, Phra-Men-Ma.
What happened in the track before is it was very jazz, where you're getting the different instruments are taking leads in different places, and all of it with this very non-jazzy, morose piano playing in the background. And then
Pisasis, I have 3 notes on this song. I'm just going to read them out directly, and then you can go off on it. Oh, space rock. How interesting. Omar ripping off Santana again. And now he's impersonating whale songs. That's all I have to say about Pisasis.
This is echoes, this is definitely that's what they were going for here, where you're at kind of like just this desolate place. And the whale song is, of course, used on Echoes too.
Yeah.
But yeah, you have kind of
Gilmore
like
did
this.
it first.
You kind of have this Richard Wright organ going. So yeah, I don't know about Santana as much as Gilmore on a lot
With
of
the whale
these
song's
things.
definitely Gilmore, but before then, he's all about the Santana. And now it goes into the next section, Con Sappho.
Which really is just a continuation of the
Continuations
last
were
one.
the same, but the sax was nice. Again, I never expected the sax to come in when it does.
Well, right, you have pretty much the guitar solo, and then you have in the last track, and now in this track you have the horns playing what the guitar was playing off that, and then you've got drums jumping in. That lead to the buildup of one last tension. It's kind of like an Interstellar Overdrive, like incorporating Interstellar Overdrive and Echoes together.
And then it kind of references a song from a few tracks ago. I didn't specify the name.
Oh yeah,
but I have in my notes. I tap out, but the next two are only under a minute each. It will all be over soon. Next section, multiple spouse wounds. I don't know why this is a separate track when it's just a continuation of the same thing and it's under a minute.
Right, it's the climax of the song, pretty much. It's the real final climax where the hero pretty much figures out that.
Okay, well, so lyrically it works. It makes sense as a different track. Okay, story-wise it works. Okay,
I don't know how different that is from. I don't know if it makes sense story-wise to break it up here.
And the final part, sarcophagy. This is just a restatement of the beginning of Cygnus.
Yeah, lyrically there was like a slight difference, and I was trying to figure out why exactly that is. Kind of like, I think they just realized that he'd gone back to the way he was before he took the journey, really, because now
and I'm
there's
not complaining
life.
about that restatement. It's interesting that they went back to that.
Yeah.
And if I was paying attention to the lyrics, it probably would have made sense. I kind of was wondering, does it need to be a separate track when, again, it's under a minute?
Yeah, because it wasn't a separate track in the intro.
Yeah, it was just part of the same intro. It was just the beginning of the song.
Like the intro is broken down into parts, and so is Miranda. Is actually broken down into parts too.
I really think Pisasis could have continued all through. Maybe make sarcophagy because it does restate the beginning a new track, but all of that space rock stuff could have been the same section.
Yeah, Cassandra Gemini should be one track, really. That's how it is on YouTube.
Well, I'm saying they didn't even need to rename them because it's just continuing from they kind of change. I'm just looking at it from a compositional standpoint. It's like 3 different parts, and they don't really need to change names when it's the same part.
Right. So I don't know.
It's the kind of heavy classic rock thing into the space thing, and then into that kind of pointless meandering thing.
Right.
And then the restatement at the end.
Yeah, so I could see it. Yeah, I don't know where the actual things are broken up. Like, because lyrically, if you look at the lyrics, they have it broken up in a different way than they have it broken up in the CD. So I'm not sure what the hell happened there. Why it had to be broken up like this.
And after we reviewed Bowie, I said I needed a palate cleanser faster than I'd ever had. I needed a palate cleanser even faster after this. I went for Estrons for very different reasons. So I think this part is kind of needless, but would you recommend it?
Of course.
You put it on the list, so obviously you would. And no surprise, I don't recommend it. Just listen to classic rock, get much more out of it. Most of the album either just bored or annoyed me, and even the few things I like, the band just doesn't. On the few things I like, the band just doesn't bring anything new to the party. It's just derivative of Yes and Genesis and Zeppelin and possibly some Rush and Floyd. If you just go to the originals, you can get the same thing.
You don't get the same energy level that these guys give it, though. You don't give it the same life. They're all very academic, very by the numbers, whereas these guys, the way they're doing it,
they played intensely. I will give it that. They did put a lot of passion into it.
I mean, there's just such a, I don't know if you want to say metal approach to it, but it's just a lot more emotive than the other
And
guys.
okay, so at this point, this was their second album, so they were
Yes.
probably young.
I don't know how young they were, because at the drive, well, yeah, I guess they were young at the drive-in. That
Uh,
was
that was
a
like a high
few.
school band or something. I got the
It
impression.
probably was.
So,
That would surprise me.
you know, I think some mature, they're very skilled musicians. And they're very, it's well played, but ultimately just derivative and overly self-impressed. I have as a last thing in my notes. Um, they're very skilled. I would like to see some maturity brought to them, as they get older and maybe edit and, become less self-indulgent. Maybe they
I
could
don't
do
think
some.
they did concept albums after other than this. I think this was
Okay.
the only one they did, like this. I think the other albums are very, uh, they have separate tracks more than anything else.
Okay.
But as far as concept albums go, I mean, this is the one that kind of, I think, sets the stage on fire before you end it, kind of, because it's like, this is it. You really aren't going to do anything else after this. And it's just exciting to hear something new, when it comes to prog rock.
But there isn't anything new. Yes, it's played passionately. I will give you that. And they brought a passion to it that their influences didn't. But musically, I don't hear anything that I didn't get from everybody who came that they're borrowing from. Compositionally, it's they just took bits and pieces and played it more intensely.
Right. And it just feels like a lot different from, say, like Spock's Beard, who, really are taking, I mean, just rewriting the originals.
Well, no, but Spock's what Spock's brings to it is that Neil Morris in his heart is a pop songwriter. So he brings that pop influence into prog.
But these guys were doing it without the pop influence.
Well, but I'm saying that's what you said. Spock's doesn't bring anything new. That's what Spock's brings is that pop influence.
But they all had pop influence before that. They all did it with pop. That was the problem with prog. They were too pop, and they were still trying to get singles, and this one, was just doing it for the sake of fucking doing it. They could have kept doing emo, pop songs and trying to sell albums to the kids, but instead they went and did this.
They did it, yes. And if this was a concert, I would have been leaving a half hour early to beat the traffic. It just
I wish I'd seen these guys live. Oh my god!
From when I saw their concerts, it seemed kind of
amazing.
The few clips I saw in that documentary, yeah, they look interesting. Anyway, we're off next week due to some scheduling issues, but until 2 weeks from now, when we'll be paying tribute to the late great Dick Dale with King of the Surf Guitar. It's a very long album.
Oh yeah.
Tracks. Until then, always remember, never forget, wherever you go in life,
there you are.